Chapter 366. The Last Line of Defense. Hua! Within the brilliant sword light, there was vast killing intent. Fourth Holy Master was still violently retreating. Facing against the brilliant sword slashed from Jian Wushuang, he had no ability to resist at all. The sword light inexorably swept over Fourth Holy Master, whose eyes were filled with a thick unwillingness. Yet, his breath still began to dissipate. Fourth brother. First Holy Master turned pale with fear. However, Jian Wushuang's figure flickered once again, like a ghost, then stopped in front of the cold woman. Having personally witnessed the scene of Fourth Holy Master being beheaded by Jian Wushuang with a single sword move, her face suddenly turned pale when Jian Wushuang appeared in front of her, following which her eyes became crazy. The cold woman clenched her teeth tightly. The black dagger in her hand, which was coated with a virulent toxin, turned into a dark gleam, piercing violently through the air. With this attack, the cold woman was using all of her strength. This was the most powerful attack she could display. However, Jian Wushuang casually swung his sword. The sword light and the black dagger collided head-on, causing the two mighty forces to burst out at the same time. Clang! A low and heavy crashing noise was heard. The cold woman's face suddenly changed. She just felt a terrifying force sweep past her, and she knew she was definitely unable to block it. The black dagger in her hand was immediately knocked away. However, the sword light still swept towards her arm without any sign of its power diminishing. Hua! A horrific slaughtering force erupted. The cold woman's arm was directly shredded by the bursting slaughtering force, but the sword light continued to sweep along her arm, moving towards her upper body, where it immediately penetrated her chest. A large amount of flesh and blood spilled out as the cold woman's breath also instantly disappeared. Third sister. First Holy Master's eyes widened with anger at this scene. But Jian Wushuang grinned at him, his figure once again flickering like a ghost. Second brother. Retreat! Retreat! First Holy Master roared with a shrill cry. He was not afraid of Jian Wushuang's attack. Although he could not compete against Jian Wushuang, he still had the ability to defend himself. But the other three Holy Masters could not. Two of them had already been killed in an instant, with only Second Holy Master remaining. He did not want Second Holy Master to die at Jian Wushuang's hands. Second Holy Master was indeed cunning. As soon as Jian Wushuang killed Fourth Holy Master, he was already aware of the trouble he was facing, so he immediately fled. When Jian Wushuang decided to kill him, after slaughtering Fourth Holy Master and Third Holy Master, he had fled beyond the perimeter of the Blood River. Without Blood River's oppression, his speed was no longer being affected, so he could run even faster. Even Jian Wushuang could not kill him in the first place. Second Holy Master fled to First Holy Master's side. The two looked extremely pale as they stared at Jian Wushuang. With the triple kill sword in his hand, Jian Wushuang stood at the center of the Blood River, like a sword god from ancient times. As for the experts who were watching, as well as the young warriors who came to participate in the selection, all of them were currently holding their breath. When they saw Jian Wushuang suddenly rush out, defeating the four Holy Masters in one single sword move, followed by killing two of them, one after the other, the atmosphere surrounding Holy Emperor Island became utterly chaotic. Holy Master! The four Holy Masters of Holy Emperor Palace had always been unattainable and almost invincible in the eyes of everyone on the Nanyang continent. But now they watched as Jian Wushuang, a single person, fought against the four Holy Masters, and killed two of them, one after the other, in a short period of time. This overwhelming and incredible scene shocked everyone. The young fighters were even more excited. Their feelings of worship towards Jian Wushuang reached an unprecedented level. On the other hand, the warriors from Holy Emperor Palace all looked pale and bloodless. Ha ha! Holy Emperor Palace is finished. Wang Yuan, who was among the experts from the alchemy school, was extremely excited at that moment. He shouted with a smile. Wang Yang, who was beside Wang Yuan, slightly shook his head upon hearing this and said, "Not necessarily." Not necessarily? Wang Yuan frowned, then quickly turned to face him. Father, even the four Holy Masters, who are the strongest in Holy Emperor Palace, had been defeated by third brother. He even slaughtered two of them. Who could possibly stop him? Third brother will definitely uproot Holy Emperor Palace. You are underestimating Holy Emperor Palace. Wang Yang glanced at Wang Yuan and said in a low voice, if their strength was so simple, our alchemy school would not be so scared of them. What do you mean? Wang Yuan's face turned gloomy. Just watch. Wang Yang did not explain too much. However, your brother is really strong and determined. He seems to have already suspected that the Holy Emperor Palace is not as simple as it seems. So, from the beginning, he has been holding back his strength. Third brother isn't using his full strength? Wang Yuan was stunned, but he continued watching. Many experts of Holy Emperor Palace had gathered at the front gate. But, at the moment, all of them had extremely ghastly expressions as they stared at Jian Wushuang, who had a cold look on his face. Behind him were two giant, sword-wielding, spectral images that were radiating a monstrous sword essence. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang moved his feet, slowly walking forward. Step by step, he slowly advanced towards Holy Emperor Palace. Dung! 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 His heavy footsteps were like drum beats in the hearts of all the experts from the Holy Emperor Palace, gradually making their hearts sink to the bottom of the abyss. What should we do? Holy Master, what should we do? Some of the elders shouted at the two Holy Masters. First Holy Master and Second Holy Master both looked sullen and desperate. Even though his heart was full of unwillingness, First Holy Master knew that he could not stop Jian Wushuang on his own. But, at this moment, Jian Wushuang, who was slowly walking towards the Holy Emperor Palace, suddenly stopped and looked up, staring at the area above the entrance to Holy Emperor Palace. He had noticed something. There was a figure slowly stepping towards him. His pace was slow and light, but every step covered a long distance. In the beginning, he had been far off in the distance, but he quickly stepped past the experts of Holy Emperor Palace, appearing in front of Jian Wushuang. He was currently standing 30 meters in front of Jian Wushuang. This man was very young, with a handsome face. He wore a gold robe and looked quite gentle. But, the most remarkable thing about him was the horrid and bloody sword scar between his eyebrows. The gold-robed young man stood calmly in front of Jian Wushuang, not radiating even the slightest aura. He just looked at Jian Wushuang, with a playful smile on his face. Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly widened the moment he saw this young man. This man is the last line of defense for Holy Emperor Palace? Chapter 367, Fighting Zhu Xiu. Even just calmly standing there, the golden-robed young man attracted everyone's attention. Who is he? All the experts, including the warriors from Holy Emperor Palace, were puzzled. Obviously, the golden-robed young man came from Holy Emperor Palace, but his existence was unknown, even to the Palace Master and those elders. Only the first and second Holy Masters were pleasantly surprised by his arrival. Master Zhu Xiu. First Holy Master and Second Holy Master hurriedly saluted the young man. The way they addressed him left everyone stunned. Master Zhu Xiu? They addressed this golden-robed young man as Master? How could that be? A horrified expert exclaimed immediately, the Holy Masters and Holy Emperor Palace have such a high status. Especially First Holy Master. He has always been the second highest figure on the Nanyang continent. Throughout the entire Nanyang continent, who is qualified to be called Master by him? Master was the address for a stronger expert. Being called that by First Holy Master carried a lot of meaning. Master Zhu Xiu? Is there such a person in Holy Emperor Palace? First Holy Master called him Master. How strong is this Zhu Xiu? Everyone who heard it was amazed. The experts from the Holy Emperor Palace, who had become as pale as the dead, had rekindled their hope at this moment. They did not know who this Master Zhu Xiu was, and they had never seen him before, but Master Zhu Xiu was obviously on their side. While everyone was staring at the golden-robed young man, Jian Wushuang's eyes were also fixed on this Zhu Xiu. A young man with a sword scar between his eyebrows. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. Previously, when his father told him how Blood Feather Tower annihilated the Ji clan, he mentioned that it was not just the experts from Blood Feather Tower, but also a young man with a sword scar between his eyebrows that had killed their people. It was this young man who took away his mother as well as his father's sword soul. Obviously, the man who had taken away his mother and father was the golden-robed young man standing in front of him at this moment. With a slight smile on his lips, The golden-robed young man looked up at the two giant sword soul phantoms behind Jian Wushuang and smiled coldly. Even though the bloodline of the sword ancestor has declined to such a level, you still managed to awaken double sword souls. Your talent is really good. I guess you are even better than your father. If I can take away all your sword souls, then my harvest should be impressive. You want to take away my sword soul? That will depend on whether you have the ability. Jian Wushuang's voice was also extremely cold. Meanwhile, his strength suddenly soared. Behind him, the sword essence gathered by the two sword soul phantoms was also increasing. The dialogue between the two did not conceal anything. It resounded throughout the area, but the experts who heard it were all puzzled. Bloodline of the sword ancestor? Sword soul? What's that? Even though there were many experts present, the number of Saint Realm experts didn't amount to more than 50 people. Some of them were even well informed, but no one had ever heard of the sword ancestor's bloodline or sword soul. Master Zhu Xiu, this Jian Wushuang possesses a monstrous strength, which is beyond what our Holy Emperor Palace could cope with. Master Zhu Xiu, please kill him for us. First Holy Master said respectfully. Even if you didn't say that, I would deal with him. The golden-robed young man said indifferently. A purple long sword, with a weak aura, appeared in his hand. It was an ordinary third-grade magic weapon. Zhu Xiu's figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already arrived next to Jian Wushuang. At the same time, the purple long sword lightly slashed toward Jian Wushuang. How fast? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Zhu Xiu was so fast that even Jian Wushuang was horrified, and the sword that Zhu Xiu wielded was incomparably mysterious. When the sword slashed out, Jian Wushuang felt as if he was being suppressed from every direction. He wanted to escape, but his body couldn't seem to move. It was like this sword had completely locked him in place. His origin comprehension is much better than mine. Jian Wushuang was secretly surprised. As soon as Zhu Xiu displayed his skill, Jian Wushuang immediately understood that Zhu Xiu's cultivation was still within the Saint Realm. On top of that, his level of power was far worse than Jian Wushuang's, but the young man's origin comprehension was far above him. As the sword light drew near, Jian Wushuang realized he was unable to dodge. Hence, he gave up escaping and faced it directly, brandishing his triple-kill sword, which radiated a monstrous rage. Clang! Although the sound was very light, a low and heavy crash was heard when the two collided. Boom! Boom! Two shocking sword lights immediately appeared and shot down towards the ground. Boom! Clang! There was a violent rumbling on the ground as a huge crack, spreading hundreds of meters, appeared, seeming to split the ground in half. At the same time, the other sword crack swept towards the gate of Holy Emperor Palace, even reaching some buildings inside the palace. Boom! A loud roar was heard and a large number of buildings were directly smashed, mercilessly killing many disciples of Holy Emperor Palace who were near or still inside the buildings. Up in the air, both Jian Wushuang and Zhu Xiu retreated at the same time. He is only in the Saint Realm, yet his strength is so powerful? Zhu Xiu looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise, then grinned and said, "This is interesting." At this point, Zhu Xiu stepped forward again. Zhu Xiu immediately closed the distance, appearing in front of Jian Wushuang once again. With the purple long sword still in his hand, he casually attacked again. But this time, he struck 3 times in quick succession. Hua! 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 The 3 sword lights were surprisingly fast and extremely subtle. Jian Wushuang's face turned solemn as he immediately swung the triple-kill sword. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive clashes were heard. Among the 3 sword lights, 2 were parried by Jian Wushuang, while the other one struck his body, leaving a clear bloody mark on his chest, forcing Jian Wushuang to retreat in an explosive and disgraceful manner. Once he regained his balance, Jian Wushuang looked at the blood mark on his chest, which was actually bleeding. He was injured. This was the first time that he has been injured since he became a venerable master and improved his body. Previously, during the hand-to-hand fight against First Holy Master, when tens of attacks landed directly on his body, it only left behind some marks, which quickly dissipated without leaving a single injury. Now, even though the sword light displayed by Zhu Xiu barely broke his skin, it was still true that he had been injured. Chapter 368. The divine land. I landed a direct hit, but it only barely broke his skin. How can his body be so strong? Zhu Xiu looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Even he had never heard of such a strong body. Jian Wushuang, however, just looked solemn. His perception of the origin and comprehension of sword principle are far above mine, and the sword skill he wields is monstrous. Yet, his basic strength is very common, only at the level of ordinary Saint Realm warriors. They had only just started fighting, but Jian Wushuang already had some understanding towards Zhu Xiu's strength. If we compare skill, I am not his opponent, so I'll have to rely on absolute strength to crush him. Jian Wushuang's eyes were flashing. Azura secret skill, bridge of helplessness. There was a loud rumble, then a turbulent blood river appeared. On the edge of the blood river, a long blood bridge extended to the end of the blood river. While standing above the blood river, Jian Wushuang began to move forward, step by step, with his aura growing, just like an Azura. The triple kill sword in Jian Wushuang's hand also radiated a monstrous rage before slashing out a moment later. The two sword essence phantoms behind him also attacked with their long swords. There was no sound. It was not even visible to the naked eye. But this seemingly invisible strike made Zhu Xiu's pupils suddenly shrink. This is the heart-killing sword technique? Zhu Xiu was not unfamiliar with Sword Ancestor's strongest sword skill. At this moment, what Jian Wushuang displayed was obviously just the first move of the heart-killing sword technique, traceless. No shadow, no trace. Under the full force of Jian Wushuang's bridge of helplessness, the power of this blow was even more earth-shattering. Even Zhu Xiu didn't dare to be careless at this moment, so he immediately used his sword to defend. Bang! A violent roar resounded. Two terrifying powers collided explosively. The constant sword light that was being released seemed like it could easily cut anything in half. It's amazing, you can even use the Sword Ancestor's famous sword skill. Zhu Xiu was staring at Jian Wushuang with sparkling eyes. Is it? However, at this moment, Jian Wushuang suddenly smiled coldly. Then, a bright light appeared between his eyebrows. The area between his eyebrows seemed to be split, and a sword essence, which gave even the spectators an eerie feeling, violently rushed forward like a thunderclap. The appearance of this sword shadow was so sudden that even Zhu Xiu was not able to react immediately. Mind's Eye Sword Technique. Zhu Xiu recognized Jian Wushuang's sword skill, but he was only barely able to move his body aside at the last moment. The incomparably fast sword essence directly struck his shoulder, leaving behind a gaping hole. Zhu Xiu's figure was also violently forced backwards by this sword essence in a completely ungraceful manner. However, once he regained his balance, the countless experts in the area were shocked by what they saw. They were surprised because there was a gaping hole, the size of a bowl, in Zhu Xiu's shoulder. This would not be a minor wound for anyone, and there should have been a lot of blood flowing from the wound. Yet, at this moment, they did not see any blood gushing from Zhu Xiu's shoulder. What they saw was dark molten iron moving slowly inside the hole. That is, the countless experts in the area were stunned. He was clearly injured, but there was no blood. Instead, there was a lot of molten iron. Is he human? After seeing this, Jian Wushuang's pupils also shrank as he mumbled, "Puppet fighter?" There was no blood, no flesh, and no organs. The Zhu Xiu in front of them was not a human at all. He was a puppet fighter. If I didn't guess incorrectly, you're from that place? Staring at this Zhu Xiu in front of him, Jian Wushuang said in a low and heavy voice, "The Divine Land." The Divine Land? As for the experts who were watching, as well as the young warriors who came to participate in the selection, all of them looked puzzled. They had never heard of this Divine Land. Only some of the old monsters present, as well as those who held high positions, such as the sect master of the alchemy school, immediately became serious when they heard him mention the Divine Land. The Divine Land. The legendary continent at the center of this world and a haven for experts. Wang Yang murmured. As the sect master of the alchemy school, Wang Yang knew about the existence of the Divine Land. He knew that this world he was in was huge, but 99% of it was covered by vast seas. Spread throughout the vast seas, there were pieces of land, of which the Nanyang continent was only a very common piece. In addition to the Nanyang continent, there were many similar lands in this world that were also filled with warriors. Naturally, there was no lack of experts. However, the real core of the world was the Divine Land. It was said that the vast territory of the Divine Land was far superior to the Nanyang continent. Owing to its core location in the world, the spiritual energy there was purer and more abundant than in other places. Therefore, cultivating in the Divine Land better than anywhere else. Therefore, the number of the experts in the Divine Land was something that the Nanyang continent could not compete with. Using a metaphor, the Nanyang continent was like an ordinary stream, while the Divine Land was a vast sea. There was no comparison. Many old monsters on the Nanyang continent, whose strength had reached the pinnacle of the Saint Realm and had become peak experts on the Nanyang continent, would go to the vast Divine Land once they felt there was nothing left for them to pursue on the Nanyang continent. In the history of the alchemy school, there had been several peak experts who had gone to the Divine Land. As for Jian Wushuang, after his strength reached a certain level and he developed a deeper understanding of the Ancestors' Land, he realized that the Sword Ancestors' bloodline was so marvelous that a small place like the Nanyang continent could not contain it. Hence, Jian Wushuang had suspected that there was a vast world beyond the Nanyang continent. As for his actual knowledge on the existence of the Divine Land, he read about it in the letter his father left him. The letter mentioned that his father had left the Nanyang continent and gone to the Divine Land. The Divine Land was a place where experts gathered. At its peak, the Sword Ancestors' bloodline was one of the overlords on the Divine Land. The force that had destroyed the Divine Land had also been located on the Divine Land. As for the Zhu Xiu in front of him, no matter if it was perception of the origin, the sword skills he displayed, or the technique he had used to take away Jian Nanshan's sword soul, all of them were beyond the scope of the Nanyang continent. Therefore, Jian Wushuang was certain he came from the Divine Land. And it is very likely that he came from the force that had destroyed the bloodline of the Sword Ancestor. As for Holy Emperor Palace, it was only a chess piece used to prevent the growth of the Sword Ancestor's bloodline. Hearing what Jian Wushuang said, Zhu Xiu gave him a non-committal smile. Obviously, it meant he tacitly approved. He really came from the Divine Land. Chapter 369. I Wait for You. It's too bad. I planned to kill you and take away your double first-grade sword souls, but now it seems I failed. Looking at his body, Zhu Xiu shook his head. You're at the peak among warriors at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. As for my puppet fighter, it is too weak to display my full battle strength, so it is unable to kill you. It was just a common Saint Realm puppet fighter, constructed using special means so that he could control it his own consciousness. Therefore, he couldn't display his full power with the puppet fighter. Against Jian Wushuang, whose body was so powerful it defied common sense, with strength at the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, there was nothing he could do right now. It seems I have to wait for my next visit to the Nanyang continent to take away your sword soul, said Zhu Xiu. No need. Jian Wushuang said coldly. Soon, I will be heading to the Divine Land to kill you. Kill me. Zhu Xiu sneered and said, You? Yes. Jian Wushuang looked at the puppet with a steadfast gaze and spoke in a forceful voice. Ha ha. Zhu Xiu laughed loudly as if he had just heard a hilarious joke, a person of narrow view. Do you think you're still considered a top expert in the Divine Land? Ridiculous. In the Divine Land, there are plenty of ants like you. How could an ant kill me? Hearing this, many of the spectators were shocked. Among the people here, Jian Wushuang was absolutely recognized as the strongest on the Nanyang continent. However, he was just a weak ant in Zhu Xiu's eyes. But Jian Wushuang didn't get angry when he heard that. Instead, he raised his head, stared at Zhu Xiu, and said, in a deep voice, Zhu Xiu. There is a saying, maybe you've heard it. Zhu Xiu turned towards Jian Wushuang. Fortune is variant. Don't look down on me just because I'm weak right now. Jian Wushuang's words spread. It has been 7 years since the first time I successfully gathered spiritual power and became a warrior. At that time, even Blood Feather Tower, an assassin organization in our weak dynasty, was an overwhelming force for me, let alone Holy Emperor Palace. However, after a few years passed, I destroyed Blood Feather Tower. Today, Holy Emperor Palace, which is much stronger than Blood Feather Tower, will be destroyed by me as well. Did you ever expect that to happen? You never know what will happen. Now, I'm a nobody. But 7 years from now, what will I become? Jian Wushuang spoke confidently in a clear, strong voice. Numerous experts there admired and agreed with him. He was confident. He should be. Since he cultivated the heavenly creation skill, nothing was impossible. On top of that, he had even received gifts from the ancestors' land. These benefits allowed him to have limitless potential. It had only taken him 7 years to go from the lowest level warrior to someone who shocked the whole Nanyang continent. Who would dare to look down on his potential? Fortune is variant. Since you've said so much, I will wait for you. A cruel light flashed in Zhu Xiu's eyes. These simple words were a direct challenge. After that, Zhu Xiu's consciousness vanished from the puppet fighter. Just before vanishing, he smiled and said, "By the way, I almost forgot to tell you, your mother has really missed you all these years." His consciousness vanished and his puppet fighter immediately fell down powerlessly. Jian Wushuang was shivering with fury, but the light in his eyes was determined and strong. "I promise, I will go to the divine land. Zhu Xiu, wait and see." Up in the air, it took Jian Wushuang quite a while to calm himself down. At which point he turned towards the experts of Holy Emperor Palace. At that very moment, all the experts of Holy Emperor Palace, including those 2 holy masters, looked pale. No one expected Zhu Xiu to be forced to give up his puppet fighter. But, even though it was strong, it could do nothing to Jian Wushuang. That meant Holy Emperor Palace had also been abandoned. To Zhu Xiu, Holy Emperor Palace was just a pawn, so he didn't care about them at all. When Jian Wushuang looked at them, eyes full of killing intent, First Holy Master was terrified and trembled. He took a deep breath, then shouted, "Elders of Holy Emperor Palace." They turned to face First Holy Master. "Run! Even if only a few of you can escape." Then he looked at Second Holy Master and they both rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Not only were these experts shocked and stunned, they also looked pale. But only a few of them chose to run away. Most of them followed behind the 2 holy masters and rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had no mercy on them at all. He had easily defeated all 4 holy masters without using his full strength. Now that he was no longer holding back his full strength, regardless of whether it was First Holy Master, Second Holy Master, or the other Saint Realm experts, no one could stop him killing them all. A massacre. Ruthless slaughter. Blood sprayed everywhere, filling the air, and a chilling atmosphere surrounded Holy Emperor Palace. The massacre lasted for 2 hours. After which, Holy Emperor Palace quieted down. Jian Wushuang, bearing the long sword on his back, walked out of the Holy Emperor Palace with no sign of his furious aura remaining. In the surrounding area, many experts looked at him, filled with terror, fear, admiration, and even worship. It had been 2 stunning hours to them. But it was a nightmare for Holy Emperor Palace. Holy Emperor Palace became a demonic hell during those 2 hours. After the battle, all 4 holy masters had been killed. The palace master and many elders had also been killed by Jian Wushuang. Only a few of the senior experts managed to run away and survive. As for the disciples of Holy Emperor Palace, Jian Wushuang only killed those who decided to live or die together with Holy Emperor Palace. As of now, Holy Emperor Palace, which had been an overlord on the Nanyang continent for thousands of years, had been destroyed. Chapter 370, Meeting Lang Rushuang again. Inside an exquisite courtyard, Jian Wushuang sat at a stone table with Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan. Even though he had already destroyed Holy Emperor Palace, the expression on his face was still quite cold. Holy Emperor Palace was just a puppet sect, controlled by Zhu Xiu and the force behind him. They were Jian Wushuang's real target. However, he had a long way to go. "Big brother, second brother, drink a little wine with me." Jian Wushuang turned his hand over, then a wine pot and several cups appeared on the table. "This wine isn't 3-day drunk again, is it?" asked Wang Yuan, a little crossly. Jian Wushuang was stunned at first, but then he smiled. That smile broke the ice. After a drink, Wang Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, "Third bro, now that Holy Emperor Palace has been destroyed, what do you plan to do next?" "I want to go to the Divine Land," Jian Wushuang said. Both Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan were surprised. The vast divine land, exclaimed Wang Yuan. He had just heard of the divine land from his father. The divine land has a lot of experts, and Saint Realm experts are normal in the divine land. Compared with the divine land, the Nanyang continent is just a tiny area. But I believe third brother will be able to accomplish big things there. Jian Wushuang softly smiled at him. The divine land is a haven for experts. Even my master wants to go there. I plan to go as soon as I reach the Saint Realm, Yang Zixuan said seriously. You too. Wang Yuan had a sad smile while listening to them. Both of you have high talent, so it's easy for you to reach the Saint Realm. However, with my strength, it will be hard for me to go there. Wang Yuan's talent in cultivation was not as strong as the other three, but his talent in alchemy was exceptional. By the way, what about fourth sister? Jian Wushuang suddenly asked. Both Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan came here when they heard that he was going to destroy Holy Emperor Palace, but he didn't see Su Ru. She. Both Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan remained silent. What's wrong? Jian Wushuang frowned. The thing is, Wang Yuan said, not long after your fight against Second Holy Master, an old woman came to her saying that she was her family and she would take her home. Family? Jian Wushuang was surprised. She had a family at one time, but hadn't her family been killed? I didn't believe her at first, but the old woman was able to turn her pupils red, just like fourth sister, said Wang Yuan. Blood-red pupils? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Yes. The old woman is unfathomable, and fourth sister said she felt close to the elder, as if they were family. So she agreed to go with her, said Wang Yuan. Is that it? Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. Fourth sister's physique is unique. If the elder said she was her family, it must be because of her physique. Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan, and Yang Zixuan were chatting. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang. A gentle voice echoed throughout the area and Jian Wushuang heard it. Right away, the three of them went outside, where a white-bearded elder was floating and waiting. His mild face was smiling and his eyes lit up like a starry sky. Jian Wushuang was stunned upon seeing him. He was sure that he hadn't met this elder before, but he felt like the elder was close and unfathomable. May I know who you are? Jian Wushuang looked at him and asked respectfully. My last name is Gu. I have come to you under Our Lady's order, answered the elder. Lady? Jian Wushuang was curious. Her last name is Lang, that might help you remember, the white-bearded elder said while smiling. Jian Wushuang understood immediately. Lang, that should be Leng Rushuang and Leng Rushue. Our Lady needs your help, so I hope that you can take a trip with me, the white-bearded elder said. Sure. Jian Wushuang nodded. He owed Leng Rushuang a favor, so he should pay her back. Please follow me, said the white-bearded elder. Jian Wushuang said goodbye to Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan and then followed after him. In the nature residence, Tang Dynasty. Jian Wushuang was familiar with it. After all, he had lived here for 1 month. In front of a bamboo house, a cold beauty, Leng Rushuang, sat on a bamboo chair. A nifty young girl, Leng Rushuang's sister, Leng Rushue, stood beside her. When she saw Jian Wushuang walking towards them, Leng Rushue smiled and said, Brother, you have come. Jian Wushuang. Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang and said, It hasn't been long, yet you have reached divine transcendence and even destroyed the overlord of Nanyang, Holy Emperor Palace. Amazing. You flatter me. May I know why you invited me here? Jian Wushuang said modestly. I need your help. After saying that, Leng Rushuang glanced at Leng Rushue. Leng Rushue was a clever girl, so she stuck her tongue out and then left. Only Jian Wushuang and Leng Rushuang remained. Please sit down. Leng Rushuang waved her hand and a bamboo chair appeared. Jian Wushuang sat down. There is a poison called icy heart poison in my body. Looking at Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang said openly, The poison is closely related to my cultivation method and my body. I have tried many different methods, but I failed to detoxify it, so I used a special method to seal it. However, I was unable to seal it completely. Even now, there is still a small amount of poison remaining in my body that I can do nothing about. Icy heart poison. Jian Wushuang was shocked to his core. He had never heard of this poison. But it should be an abnormal poison if an expert like Leng Rushuang couldn't deal with it. If you can't do anything, even with your power, how can I be of help? Jian Wushuang asked.